And now, the Lowe Post.
Welcome to the Lowe Post podcast on a Thursday afternoon in beautiful Northeast America, where it's time somehow to talk about All-Stars. We have to vote on All-Star starters very soon. The All-Star game, such as it is apparently taking place during a plague in Atlanta. And so let's pick some All-Stars, and there's no one I'd rather pick All-Stars with than the one and only Kevin Arnovitz. How are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
I am hanging in. Are you a voter for All-Stars?
All right, really funny story. I'm supposed to be, and I screwed up. I told the good people at the NBA, when I got the email, I thought it is, will you vote like in-game on the MVP? Are you available? And I'm not to vote in-game MVP on the So I said, I can't do it this year. And so I have been temporarily replaced. Total user error, right? Like I just completely screwed up. But
what you're saying is you didn't read the email from the NBA. You just skimmed it, just threw it, just deleted it, didn't read it carefully at all.
That's exactly what happened. And then kind of I deserve this punishment. To the extent that it is a punishment. Voting is really stressful.
This All-Star voting doesn't stress me out. End of the year voting stresses me out. So here's why All-Star voting doesn't stress me out. We only vote for the starters. Okay, so we vote for the media get whatever percent. I've lost track of the algorithm by which the starters are chosen and what percentage say the idiots like me and the media have, but whatever, we have some percentage say. But we only vote on starters. We vote 2 guards and 3 front court players. Everything else is up to the coaches who pick the 7 reserves, really without regard to position at this point. I think they have enough flexibility on position that I don't even worry about it. So whenever people want to get mad at the media voters, A, we only have 25% say, and B, we only vote for the 5 starters. The reserves, which is where the real debate is really for like the last 3 spots in each conference. That's up to the coaches. So let's start in the Eastern Conference. Are you ready, Mr. Arnovitz?
I am ready.
I actually think the East is more interesting than the West this year when you get to the back of the roster. So here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to tell you how many locks I have for the 12-man team in general. You can either throw someone out of my locks and say they're out, they're not a lock, or you can say, hey, I have another guy that should be a lock. So here are my locks. I have 7 locks in the Eastern Conference. 7, gotta be there, no disputing it. I don't want to hear your contrarian argument. They are in the All-Star game. Joel Embiid, who might be the MVP right now. Kevin Durant, Giannis, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Kyrie Irving, and Bradley Beal. Those are my 7 locks. You can make up arguments against them if you want. The Wizards stink. Kyrie went AWOL, whatever. 7 all-star locks. I don't know which 5 I'm voting for as starters because, frankly, I don't care. I haven't put any thought into it. I don't even know what position Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum count as for this exercise of voting for starters. I will probably slide one of them in for Kyrie for the AWOL factor and make Kyrie a backup. But those guys are 7 locks, no-brainers for me. They have to be in. Do you agree? Disagree? Have somebody else that deserves lock status?
I've got 2 other locks, one of which I was absolutely certain you would have, who is Nikola Vucevic.
Spicy.
I have him as a lock. I just can't. And now, look, part of it is I'm over-indexing to the fact that there just aren't a lot of other bigs on the board in the East, so I feel like just by virtue of him being superlative at his position. I also want to make a disclaimer, like really quick, for like how this is different than awards voting at the end of the year. I mean, I'm gonna, you know how film festivals have the audience award and the grand jury award? Like I will make this more of an audience award in that I'm willing to forgive sins of commission guys make, things I might not be as willing to overlook in an award situation. I'm gonna over-index offense to defense much more than I do in awards, and I'm going to consider some sentimental and narrative factors that I might not otherwise in an awards vote. So let me just say that. So
I'm a big softie. I want the fans to be entertained. Okay, fine.
Oh no, it's not even so much I want the fans to be entertained. I just think it's more of an artifice. I'm cool with that, and I'm going to go with it. The other lock I have is Chris Middleton, and I don't know what this freaking guy has to do to just assert himself as just a perennial all-star, just kind of put it in ink. And that's a larger conversation I think we started having a couple of weeks ago. But Middleton to me is a lock, and I'm sort of, I feel pretty certain of that.
All right, so let's go there. So, but again, we have 12 spots. We don't get 15. We don't get 14. We don't get 19. So when your guy is left off and people get yelling and screaming at everyone, just remember, you've got to take someone off the 12-man roster to put that guy on. And then, that's a little trickier than I thought. Anyway, so I've got 7 locks. That gives me 5 spaces left, right? My next guy in, so you might as well count him as a lock.
Let me ask you a question about Tatum. And look, I've got Tatum on my bubble.
I don't like where this is going.
No, I just like, can you defend Tatum over Middleton? I mean, tell me, because I'm a Tatum. I like Tatum a lot. I'm also looking at his numbers, and look, there are numbers to look at. That's how we examine this stuff. I see a guy with a pretty much barely above league average true shooting percentage. By the way, still might very well be on my team, but I just don't understand how we get to lock for him, where we might not get a lock for Middleton.
Jason Tatum's just better than Chris Middleton. I don't really know how to. I love Chris Middleton. Jason Tatum's just better. I haven't even really looked too deeply at Jason Tatum's numbers. He's such a no-brainer for me. He's also the far superior defensive player of the two. I will look at Jason
I think he's
Tatum.
A moderate superior defensive player.
Okay. I mean, he's averaging 27, 7 and 4, 46%, 41% shooting, 49% from twos. Middleton, look, what I was going to say is I've got those 7 locks, which gives me 5 spaces. If you wanted to put an 8th lock in there and he's next on my list, it's Middleton. Middleton belongs in. So we agree. And by the
way, I have Tatum in as well. I had him like right below Middleton as
Middleton. So we might as well just say that's 8 for me. Middleton's in. His shooting numbers are. People have been a little slow to catch on to the fact that he's basically just a Klay Thompson level, oh my God, Chris Middleton's open, full-on panic shooter.
Yes.
Capital S shooter, making threes with dudes right in his face, shooting an elite level from mid-range, rim, everywhere, 6 dimes a game, kind of emerging as the Bucks' somewhat co-lead playmaker. So he's in for me too. That's 8. We can get to Vucevic now because if that's 8, my next 2, let's just go through the candidates. That leaves us 4 spots for a whole pile of dudes in the East who are not roughly equivalent, then on a given day, kind of roughly equivalent. Here are some of the names that we haven't named yet. Well, so Vucevic is 1, Trae Young, Zach LaVine, Fred VanVleet, Jeremy Grant, Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, Julius Randle, Malcolm Brogdon, Domantas Sabonis, Gordon Hayward, Drew Holiday, Bam Adebayo, Kyle Lowry, Pascal Siakam coming on of late. I don't really think he's a candidate. And by the way, James Harden also plays in the East. So we've named 8. You have Vucevic in as 9th.
And by the way, I also have Harden as a lock. Now,
so I'm not above just being like, you loafed your way off a team
I got you.
to get traded and pouted and drop the honey buns without wearing a mask and all that. Like, I'm not about being like, on my fake all-star roster that doesn't matter because James Harden's going to make the all-star game and he is an all-star. I'll just leave you off this year. I'm not above that. I'm not sure I'm going to do that, but he's not a lock for me. My next 2 were actually 2 guys above Vooch. My next 2 were Bam, who I just think has been a sensational two-way player all season, and Trae Young. And so if you want to get into the Trae Young conversation now, we can do that. Jackie Mack had a fantastic Trae Young piece yesterday. Vooch is on my next tier of guys in candidacy for spots 11 and 12. And I will say this on Vooch's behalf. That lineup they are starting is not an NBA lineup aside from Nikola Vucevic. He has to do everything for that. I mean, that team is starting James Ennis and Gary Clark at the forward spots. And Fournier, their starting 2 guard, has been injured for at least half of the last 3 weeks, if not more. They have nothing around Nikola Vucevic. Without him, that team is dead. Now, they're dead anyway, but without him, they're remember in the Naked Gun when the guy fell out the window and got run over by the parade and then he got run over by the steamroller? Without Nikola Vucevic, they're that guy in the Naked Gun for everybody under 35. The Naked Gun is a spoof movie starring Leslie Nielsen as Lieutenant Frank Drebin. Go watch it. It's really funny. So and when I surveyed, as I usually do, front office guys and coaches around the league and said, here's this pile of names, pick a couple of all-stars out of here. Vucevic is winning that survey, probably even over Trae Young, over Zach LaVine. So I'm partial to Vuce.
Yeah, that's been my experience too, and that's an interesting conversation unto itself.
People have a lot of respect for Vooch, and I don't know if part of it is tinged with pity for how that injuries have just absolutely decimated the Magic. I mean, every good player on their team other than Vucevic is hurt. But I've got Bam over him. I've got Middleton over him. And Trae, let's just do the Trae Young thing now. Because I can hear the Bulls fans already. Why is Trae Young an offense-only player ahead of on your fake ballot that doesn't matter? Ahead of our offense-only player who's putting up 28 a game on 50, 40, 90 shooting. Basically, I think he's a little shorter than 90, Zach LaVine, on free throws. Why does Trae get in above him? By the way, I'm not saying LaVine is out. I'm just saying LaVine is in my tier with Vucevic for spots 11 and 12, maybe borderline. I've got Trae above him. I have an answer to that question, but I'll ask you right off the bat. Do you agree with putting Trae Young ahead of Zach LaVine? Is Trae Young going to be on your All-Star team?
So I'm glad we're having this conversation because that is literally sort of my last guy in conversation. I have been a LaVine skeptic his entire career. Like, just not my kind of ball player. A guy that I traditionally felt like has no interest, not only is unwilling to make anybody else on the floor better, but really no interest in an absolute tunnel vision player. And like, I got to take yes for an answer, Zach. The guy is considerably less that player. I can't get him for being inefficient anymore because he is the paragon.
His shooting numbers are
ridiculous.
Insane.
I don't think he's. Look, I don't think this is a guy with 180 peripheral vision, but I think he's up to 117. That said, he has just a fraction of the creativity of Trae Young as a playmaker, as a passer. I mean, Trae, this becomes one of those qualitative conversations. I can't defend keeping LaVine out. Particularly since obviously Young does nothing for you defensively, though LaVine probably has greater defensive potential, which makes him a greater defensive disappointment. But it's just really hard for me to keep LaVine off this ballot. And I might be able to, if I'm willing to throw Kyrie overboard, I can probably get both of them on. I really want to have a conversation where Fred VanVleet is in this conversation because I'm just an enormous Fred VanVleet guy. There are other, obviously, I think he brings so much more than either of those guys, kind of spiritually and obviously defensively, in terms of sort of, I don't want to say feel because I don't think anybody has the feel that very few people have the feel that Trae Young does, but just in terms of this is a 5-man exercise. I much more, with Trae, it's kind of a 3 or 4-man exercise. I mean, I think it's one of the crazy things that's happened with Trae is this notion that he's a selfish player. I think he has moments of selfishness. I don't think there's anything about the greater design of his game that is selfish. And all you have to do is watch him, thread the needle to John Collins, 6-7 times a night to understand.
Well, I will say though that I agree with you. I mean, Trae Young, it's hard to average 10 assists a game and be selfish. I will say though that Trae Young really wants to get the assist. Like when you say thread the needle to John Collins, he wants to be the guy threading the needle to John Collins. And Lon Kruger in that piece by Jackie McMullen, I was surprised he just came out and said it. He just came out and said it. Trae Young's college coach said, we tried to get him to do stuff off the ball, and it just turns out he wasn't very productive at it. And that's still the case now. You see baby steps. Ooh, there's a little split cut. Ooh, that was interesting. But he's still just doing nothing off the ball. And I think that's the next evolution for him is how to be a player. He doesn't have to be Steph Curry, even as everybody wants it to be. He's never going to be. What Steph does off the ball is totally unique and totally special. But he's got to do a little something, and he's got to do stuff that lends itself more to hockey assists and stuff that doesn't show up on the traditional stat sheet as much as, like, I'm pounding the ball and getting every assist, which is, by the way, he's really good at that. And I have him in the All-Star game over Zach LaVine on this fake ballot because of his playmaking. He's just in another universe as a playmaker from Zach LaVine. I think they are both enormously damaging defenders. I mean, LaVine, his intentions are good and he tries hard. I really believe that Zach LaVine tries hard on defense. I do. When you talk to him about defense, it's clear that he thinks about it. He can talk it. It's just on the floor, he just gets lost all the time and it's just not working out. He's just doing enormous damage on defense. So is Trae Young, but he's miles ahead of Zach as a playmaker. So on this ballot, Trae Young, Bam Adebayo, and Chris Middleton are spots 8, 9, and 10. And if you put Harden in, who clearly is a deserving all-star in the sort of most literal sense, I've only got one spot left.
Right.
And I'm not sure I want to put Harden in for reasons I already discussed, but we're getting narrow pretty fast. But so is Trey on your team? What's the end of the discussion?
Look, a lot of times I kind of come here with you, and that last spot
we've got 15 guys at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, Trey's interesting because in some ways it's a Kyrie issue, in the sense that when we talk about the off the ball question. I mean, what I would love to, what you want to do is take Trae Young, or have a coach take Trae Young, obviously, and just say, do you know how devastating you would be against a recovering defense as the second side playmaker off of Harder's initial action? I mean, because that's always the thing. It makes so much. I mean, imagine Trae Young on the catch on the second side against a defense that was loading up on Harder, or for that matter, just by virtue of your presence on the second side. Now they're having to defend everything on the first side 2-on-2, and it's just I'm with you. In some ways, Kyrie has this issue as well, right? No matter how much. And there were moments in the LeBron teams where Kyrie's second side is just like that, like that's your out, and I just think that I'm with you in terms of him. I think it's going to happen. I tend to be a young optimist, at least offensively. Like, I actually think he will become the absolutely.
He's a legitimately great offensive player.
I think he's going to become a complete offensive player. I think he might go down as one of the greatest offensive players of his generation. To me, it's the defensive piece, but even offensively, I'm with you. As I just want to see, he could wreak so much havoc against recovering defenses off the ball. And for that matter, just merely as a point of gravity for a defense, especially with Harder had. By the way, Hawks thing. Harder, I still call him Harder, which is. It was like
Dick Harder was
right, like Dick Harder. I thought it was
assistant coach.
But Harder is he had so many nice plays last night against Dallas. I think people forget that we mentally have him as an SG playing, shooting guard in a 2, and he is a legitimate playmaker. He is a guy who can control offense and control possessions, and can find guys, and is very large. So also has that kind of vision that big twos have as a playmaker. So
he was kind of the forgotten man in Atlanta coming into this year, given the Bogdanović signing,
and the injuries.
Gallinari signing, Reddish and Hunter, the kind of sexier young guys, and Herter has outplayed all those guys but Hunter this season. Hunter's been fantastic. Herter's been really, really good as a playmaker. Before we go any further, let's litigate Bam. Do you have Bam in?
Yeah, he's my 12th, although I'm up. He was one of those guys. I have him as my number 12. Open to conversations about Van Vliet. What am I doing with Kyrie? Sort of that. But Bam, I have on there. If you told me we have to, the clock is ticking. Submit my names right now at the buzzer. Bam is number 12.
I'll defend Bam over Vooch. Vooch is obviously a much better shooter, although Bam's mid-ranger has been one of the biggest developments of the season so far. The Heat are 10-14. They haven't lit the world on fire, but they've been decimated by the virus and the health and safety protocols, and Bam has kept them afloat. And just sometimes you default to, or I do in doing these kind of things, like Game 7 of a playoff series, who do I want on my team? Bam Adebayo or Nikola Vucevic? And I want Bam because I know what that guy brings on defense, and he brings me enough on offense that to me there's a meaningful gap between them in the who do I trust the most in the very biggest games. And by the way, I have my whole spreadsheet open with my VORPs and Schnorps and BIPMs and win shares and all this stuff. They're about neck and neck, Bam and Vooch, in all these categories, and if you add them up all together and all that. So I'm going Bam. And so I've got Bam, Middleton, Trey. Then I've got those 2 spots left, one if Harden. And, boy, I don't know what to do with them because I got Vooch, Levine, Van Vliet, and again, that same conversation I keep coming back to. And we can default to, well, the All-Star Game's basically a dunk contest put in the dunker. Game 7 of the finals, Game 7 of the second round, whatever. You point blank ask me, who do I want in a game? Fred VanVleet or Zach LaVine?
Oh, it's easy.
And I get that this is a facile question because it depends who else is on the team, what their skill sets are, who am I playing. But I want Fred VanVleet. I just do. I think he's a better basketball player. I trust him more. He's a really good defensive player. He's a better playmaker. He's not nearly the scorer. And by the way, in 1 out of 3 games or 1 out of 4 games, that's going to be the wrong answer because Zach LaVine's going to score 25 points in the fourth quarter and single-handedly win the game for me. So I'm not really even convinced it's the right answer in that fake debate or in this fake all-star debate. But I kind of like Fred VanVleet better, but it's hard to ignore Zach LaVine's numbers. So here's my tier of guys for that last spot. Vooch, LaVine, VanVleet, Harden, Jeremy Grant, who I think has been really, really good for Detroit.
It's funny. I have him on sort of not last man cut, but like third to last man cut.
And then I have a teensy tiny gap until I get to the Pacers guys who are slumping a little bit right now. Simmons and Harris, and we can have the discussion of should the best team in the East have another All-Star. I'm not that compelled for either Simmons or Harris because I just think Embiid is by far the driving force of everything going on there. Both those guys have been very good, but I have a hard time putting them above everyone else. And then Julius Randle, Gordon Hayward, the advanced stats scream out for one candidate who's not going to make it for me and who's not going to make the real game. The advanced stats are screaming out for Drew Holiday.
Yeah.
His advanced numbers are off the charts good. I just can't quite get there. So I don't know. Take any of those. Maybe we should focus this around the Sixers. Should they get a second guy?
I'm not get a second or third guy for the best team kind of player. In fact, I tend to in these exercises not punish guys for playing on crappy teams. And to your point, VanVleet is literally one of my favorite players in the league, and the fact that I would leave him off for LaVine kind of tells you about my. By the way, this is my all tripped up name. I almost called him Zach LaVine again. The way I say Kevin Harder, I was saying Fred VanVleet for like 2 seasons before someone on the Raptors PR staff, which is one of the best in the business, corrected me. Like I am so bad at names for a sport I cover. It is humiliating. Like this particular East roster is the collection of all those guys. But
so Tobias Harris and Ben Simons, no case for either of those guys for you?
Again, I don't feel compelled to sort of, also if they were if they were 22-6, we could have that conversation. I mean, they've overachieved. They've surprised the hell out of me. I have so much respect for what's going on there. I don't feel like I have to kind of push a guy through just because the team's having, has outperformed expectations.
I actually think Harris has a slightly better case than Simmons, although I've gotten pushback on that from a lot of front office people who are just absolutely enamored with Ben Simmons' defense. And by the way, they should be. He's a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. He's incredible. He's just had too many games where I'm like, well, where is Ben Simmons? Like, is he on? Is he doing anything? Like, is he on? He's averaging 13 a game. I mean, this is Ben Simmons. He's averaging 13 to 8 and 8. So part of it is that maybe I'm focused too much on scoring. I believe he leads the league in assists that lead to three-pointers. He's an incredible playmaker. But in a half-court game, there are just long portions of it where it's like, is he on the floor? Is he afraid to get fouled? Now, then there are games where he turns it on in the fourth quarter, and then he has a couple games in a row where he's averaging 20 a game and he looks great. That guy's an all-star. I haven't seen that guy enough this year. And Tobias, shooting the hell out of it. And if you look at their numbers, one of the things I really like that Doc Rivers has done is he has really stopped staggering Simmons and Embiid as much as Brett Brown did and has them playing together a lot. And one of the reasons he's done that is because staggering them pretty strictly would make for a lot of Ben Simmons, Dwight Howard minutes, which is just kind of a bad fit. And instead, he's used Tobias Harris as kind of the lone starter with creating offense on bench units. Yeah. And those lineups have been quite good. And I think that's a feather in Tobias's all-star cap that those lineups are all plus for the Sixers. I think he's got a pretty strong case. I guess I just come down to like, at this level, part of this is who creates the most offense for their teammates. And that to me is where Harris and Grant fall a little bit short of VanVleet, LaVine, obviously Harden, who's on another planet, and even Vucevic, by virtue of both his passing and his shooting from the center position, is such a creative force for the Magic. Grant's at like 2.5 assists a game. Harris is a 3-assist guy. Julius Randle, we haven't talked about, is a 6-assist guy. It's his numbers have been trailing a little bit downward lately. He's got a good case actually for the Knicks. But these are really, Brogdon's slumping a little bit recently, and these are really hard decisions. I don't know exactly where I'm going to end up.
Yeah, I have Randall ahead of Harris.
because of the creativity, the
Yeah,
passing.
again, I look, Harris. It's funny, and it's almost a backhanded compliment. There's something about saying, and look, Harden would be an exception to this conversation, where yeah, that's the scorer who can really carry a second unit. What are we really saying? Again, let's leave Harden aside. Often that's a euphemism for this is not a guy who really maximizes himself or his teammates in a 5-man basketball game. But damn, I've got 12 minutes a night where it's a slop fest against some crappy teams, crappy second units, and that guy can just go ball, and it's pickup basketball, 19 possessions, let's go. And again, I feel that shouldn't be an insult, because again, what Doc has done with those rotations makes a hell of a lot of sense. I don't think it's damning of Harris, but I do think it reveals something about him.
Well, and let's a couple other names. Colin Sexton has really tailed off. Siakam is too little, too late. Kyle Lowry just hasn't had the Kyle Lowry season, except for we should rename ESPN's real plus minus fancy adjusted plus minus stat that I don't understand. They should just rename it Kyle Lowry, because every other advanced stat, Kyle Lowry for the first time in his career is sinking in, is not where usually Kyle Lowry averages like 13 points, 14 points, like blah numbers, 15 points a game. But all the advanced stats are like, Kyle Lowry's amazing, amazing, amazing. This year, all the advanced stats are kind of like meh, meh, meh. And then you get to our real plus minus, and it's like, no, Kyle Lowry's still the 5th best player in the NBA. I have no idea what's going on there. But I don't think he's an all-star this year. Brogdon and Sabonis have slumped a little bit lately, as the Pacers have. And one thing about Sabonis that you notice is he's a great player, and he would be a deserving all-star. I had him on my all-star ballot last year. He's a kind of, as a scorer, he is a depends on the night kind of guy. So on nights when he can really play bully ball, when he has a matchup that gives him a size advantage, you're like, my God, how does anyone stop this guy? And on nights when there's a center or he just doesn't get into so many easy matches, because he guards power forwards, so sometimes he gets the power forward on offense guarding him. When he doesn't have as many favorable just bully ball mismatches, he's kind of throwing up a lot of tough jump hooks that miss. And he's not – so he's really a depend on the night kind of scorer. And I don't think there – I mean, I looked at Miles Turner because I think he's been sensational defensively. I just don't think there's enough there. Hayward, I don't really have an argument for why not Gordon Hayward. He's having a fantastic year. I mean, the raw numbers are really good. I can look them up in a second, but they're strong, and defensively he's good. His advanced stats are just in the middle of the pack with all these other guys. I mean, why are we not screaming? And by the way, didn't make my cut, but Terry Rozier is shooting 50% on catch and shoot threes. He's not an all-star, but just wanted to give him a little shout out. But why is Hayward? What are we missing? What is there some wow factor that's just not there? Because he's having a nice season.
I think again because our taste in basketball players leans towards Bam Adebayo. That's why, right? Like if you want to give Bam's spot. But I don't think you do.
I mean, Gordon Hayward's 23, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. Right. So the 4 assists, but he's playing with all these guards, including LaMelo, who's been sensational, that are taking his assists. You know, 50% shooting, 42% from 3. He's a worthy candidate.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like Bam a little better. That's all.
So, I think that's it. It's just it becomes so much of this, and this is where it actually becomes fun. It's a question of taste. What is your taste in basketball players? And I mean, look, Hayward functionally, I love a 6'8", basically point forward, with incredible vision, who is actually a pretty decent defensive player on a team with not a lot of size, so little size that you have to play biz at center because that's who you trust most to actually do big man things on that team. It's still a problematic roster. By the way, they've had some really. We'll talk Charlotte. I'd love to talk Charlotte one day later in the dog days because they're a really interesting team, and actually I really like watching of the sort of mediocre teams in the East. They're my favorite mediocre team to watch this season.
Well, LaMelo is a show, and Miles Bridges. Yeah, my God, that guy is gonna kill a human being on a basketball court during a game. Like that guy dunks. Has he been in the dunk contest before?
God,
I should probably know this. I don't really keep track of all the dunk contest participants, but maybe he's a 2-foot jumper, so maybe he wouldn't be a great dunk contest guy. But my God, that guy is just outrageous. And anyway, not an all-star, but a very good player. Yeah, Charlotte's fine. They're a decent team. Gordon is, again, if you want to put him in, put him in. I just, I just like some of these other guys better. And by the way, if Harden goes in, that's 11 guys. There's going to be a lot of good dudes who missed the cut in the East. It's a more crowded field in the West. Did you have any quarrel with Bradley Beal being a starter?
Not at all.
I've seen some people do.
No, I have absolutely no qualm. It was one of my easier locks, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, he is, again, everything we just said about Vooch. I mean, the Wizards are bad to begin with, and they've been ravaged by injuries and virus stuff. Some of the lineups he's having to carry are really, really not very good. And Russ had the 141-point game a week or so ago and has been bad again since then. He's turning it over all the time. And last night I was watching their game against Toronto. There were 4 or 5 instances where he had a layup, or the old Russ would have, if not made the layup, gone for it and drawn contact or something, and he just passed out of it. And it's he's also altering his jump shot. Looks different every game. Like the last 2 games, I was even texting some people about it. He's got a lot of arc under the ball all of a sudden. You can tell he's kind of just searching for something. But anyway, Beal's a no-brainer. The guy's an Iron Man. Is he a good defensive player? Is he like a huge plus on defense? No. I don't buy the narrative that he's just out there loafing and mailing it in. I think he gets hit by screens, but he's also, the level of exertion he has to do to get that team into offense on every single possession is enormous. And so I just don't buy the idea that he's out there just loafing. I think he's playing pretty hard and is just an okay defensive player.
And that's sort of the Damian question, who's rating really poorly defensively this year on a lot of the metrics, is, again, there's not a lack of effort there. I think some guys, whether it's biomechanics, whether it's physiology, whatever the hell it is, like, it's just, defense in some ways is a very physical demand. And if you have the right twitches and you have the right body, it works. I don't think either of those guys ever want for effort. Neither of them are ever going to be great defensive players, and it's something I can live with.
Before we move to the West, so let's just review for the record. My All-Star 12-man ballot right now has 10 pretty much in pen. Kyrie, Beal, Embiid, Durant, Giannis, Brown, Tatum, Bam, Middleton, Trey. I've got 2 spots left. Let me repeat that. I have 2 spots left. So all the people who are going to yell and scream when their favorite player doesn't get onto someone's ballot, I have 2 spots left. And if you want to open up a 3rd spot, you got to yank somebody really good off my 10-man ballot. So just dig in and prepare for that. I don't know who my last 2 are going to be, or if I'm going to put Harden on. And if I put Harden on, then I've got 1 measly spot left for a bunch of guys who are having good seasons. It actually hurts my soul a little bit. I will go to bed tonight and my head will hit the pillow, and for 45 minutes I will feel my version of anguish about Jeremy Grant and Julius Randle and Fred VanVleet, because I have serious problems, and I will get less sleep because I'm thinking about my fake counts for nothing all-star ballot and the great season Jeremy Grant is having. I have a lot of emotional and psychological problems. Let's move to the Western Conference. Mr. Arnovitz, I will yield the floor to you. Did you do locks for this? And if so, how many locks do you have, and what is their identity?
I've got 8 locks and another 9th semi-lock and a 10th. I'm not going to hear any arguments against it. I don't care what anybody thinks.
Ooh, well, first of all, I'm sure we have the same first 8 and 8.5 or 9, but I'm very interested to hear who the 10th is. So let's leave the 10th aside. Yeah. Who are your first 9?
In no particular order, by the way. Dame.
No, this order is your definitive ranking of these players for all time. Just so you know.
Dame, Steph, Kawhi, PG, LeBron, Jokic, Luka, AD.
Yeah, those are the top 8 guys in the Western Conference. There's no argument. It's cut and dry. They're in. There is no argument against them. If you're arguing against them, you're being silly. So to review, Steph, Luka, Dame, PG-13, Kawhi, LeBron, Jokic, Anthony Davis. In, 8 guys in, period, end of story. So the entire let's pick our Western Conference All-Stars really is let's pick 4 players. That's what we're left with. And you and I agree, I think. I'm guessing we have the same guy as a virtual 9th lock, and that person for you is?
Well, Zion Williamson is my virtual ninth.
Ooh, we don't agree.
But I also have a 10th that is like I actually feel more passionately about. I just know he's going to be a topic for debate, and so I'm not. But I'm just not going to hear it.
Who's that?
Mike Conley.
All right, we have gotten. This is exciting. This is really exciting. So we've got the same first 8. I thought for sure your 9th guy. Call him a virtual lock. Call him a semi-lock. Call him a chain lock that you can saw off if you're really determined to steal the bike. It was Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, and Rudy's
I'm
basically
shocked that Rudy's not in there for you.
Rudy's my next guy. I mean, there are the funny thing is this is a hard conference. There are also some defined tiers for me. So it looks hard, but it actually isn't as hard. And like Rudy's my 11th. And you're not going to have any argument for me there. I just I'm being really sentimental with Conley.
Okay, so let's take what we have in common, which is essentially 9 guys that we both think we should be in. If we both include Gobert on our should be in list, those are 9.
Yeah.
That gives me 3 spots left to work with. You're telling me that it's a no-brainer for you that 2 of those spots are going to Zion Williamson and Mike Conley, which means we're up to 11 now on the Arnovitz ballot.
So one spot for 4 guys for me.
And we have not heard the names Donovan Mitchell, anybody that plays for the Suns, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, De'Aaron Fox, Christian Wood,
Brandon Ingram, DeMar DeRozan. Okay, so and by the way, in absentia, CJ McCollum is an all-star.
Yeah, he had a great season. So Zion and Conley, defend those choices over, I'll just name random names, Donovan Mitchell and Chris Paul.
All right. Mike Conley has been the best player on the best team. I understand Donovan when all is said and told. And Mitchell might be my 12th guy. Mike Conley has been the best player on the best team. He is 7th in the league in RPM, 3rd in Raptor WAR behind Jokic and Leonard. He is the top.
What was that last thing?
This is Nate Silver's thing. I'm throwing out like my point is it's not that
called Raptor WAR?
Raptor, and then he has
that sounds like a video game where dinosaurs are fighting each other.
So it's Raptor, and then they have a war within Raptor, right? So
do I have to go on another site and add another statistic to my freaking spreadsheet?
I'm not telling you.
I can't and I won't.
I'm not lending it like all that much purchase. What I'm here to tell you is it doesn't matter which of these damn metrics you go to. The man is like at the top of the league. He is 9 points better in net rating than Utah's overall astounding number.
You almost sounded like The Rock there for a second. It doesn't matter what Raptor is.
He is 16th in win shares, which for a 24-man roster essentially would have him squarely in. The floater is in full effect. It's also can I say how much fun it is to watch a guy with an elite floater play with a guy like Gobert who rolls hard, catches lobs. Like we're seeing a little bit with Trae Young and Capella and Collins. Darius Garland is going to get there with like those big guys. De'Aaron Fox is another one with Holmes. But I just like Conley has organized that offense in a way that no one else had really been able to achieve. And Mitchell will get there, but he's not a pure point. Not that we need a pure point anymore. But what Conley does to stabilize that team on the floor, there's a reason they're doing what they're doing. And by the way, Bogan's not having a great year. Mitchell's not having a great year. Ingles is coming off the bench. Gobert is Gobert. I'm sorry, where's the margin for the league-leading Utah Jazz? And it's this guy, and you start digging into, okay, well, let's cut it more finely. Every time you do that, every time you examine, every time you watch 17 possessions at random, there's Mike Conley, essentially just elevating this offense from resourceful to dominant. I don't
disagree. I don't have him as a lock only because the raw numbers are not as, and I'm not a big raw numbers guy, but you have to consider them. They're not outrageous. He's injured. He's suffering from the recency effect of he's injured right now. And as he's injured, all the players you just mentioned are playing better. So Donovan Mitchell is surging at another huge game there today against Boston. Bogdanovich, not an all-star, but I'm just saying, quietly now up to 42 or 43% from three after starting really slow. So he's coming on. The rest of the team is lifting up as Mike is sitting out. Now look, I love Mike Conley, unabashedly. I love the grit and grind Grizzlies. he is all about the right stuff. He's just a wonderful player. And I do not want...
Is it that bad?
No. I'm just saying, I do not want the first sentence of his career obituary to be the best player never to make an All-Star game. I don't want that. And I care. I actually care. I don't have a heart of, tin. I care. And you are absolutely right that when I put in all my schmorps and vorps, and apparently I have to add Dinosaur Wars to this freaking spreadsheet, Mike Conley is damn near at the top in every category. I don't know what those numbers are capturing. I mean, obviously he's shooting it really well. He's a low turnover player. He's still a decent defensive player. He slipped on that end a little bit. He's a net plus every second he's on the floor, off the ball, on the ball. And as you said, you can study Utah's lineups any way you want. When Conley's on the floor, they're really, really good. And when Conley's off the floor, they're less good. Now, part of that is because, and this is where you get into, when you get into the weeds, you really get into the weeds. Quinn Snyder has really tethered him to Rudy Gobert. They go in games and out of games together. So the on-off numbers are a little noisy in terms of who should really get quote-unquote credit for them. But if you look at it, when he plays without Rudy, it's only 99 minutes. They're plus 20-something per 100 possessions. When he plays without Mitchell, which is 300 and something minutes, now again, that's mostly with Rudy, they're plus 20-ish per 100 possessions. When he plays without both, only 75 minutes, they're plus 30 per 100 possessions. Again, only 75 minutes, not really meaningful, but the bottom line is, ascribe the credit any way you want to. Mike Conley has been amazing, and the Jazz have been amazing with Mike Conley on the floor. So if you want, for both quality of play reasons and sentimental reasons, to put Mike Conley on the All-Star team, I just hope he comes back soon before the raw numbers start to get away from him a little bit, because he has a really strong case. And look, we get into all these candidates where if you look at their numbers any way you want, Mitchell, Booker, Paul, DeRozan, Morant, Fox, Gilgeous-Alexander, Christian Wood, who we actually should talk a little bit more about, there's not a lot differentiating them, right? They're all kind of in the same ballpark. They all have flaws. They all have plus points. You can dig into the lineup information and learn whatever the hell you want. There's not much separating them. So if you want to go with a little sentiment and a little like, hey, let's give the best team 3 All-Stars, I don't really think that's a crime. If it comes at the expense of Devin Booker, who, by the way, the advanced stats say Devin Booker doesn't even belong in this conversation. I think he does. He's averaging 24 points a game. But when I see all the advanced statistics and I line them up, it's not close. And I think they are whispering something to us about something that's a little bit missing from his game. Now, part of it is Chris Paul's taken all the playmaking duties, and Devin Booker's not a great defensive player, to be generous. But I don't have a problem with giving Utah 3. I'm not sure that's where I'm going to go. But that would mean, if I went that way, that my last 3 spots would be Mitchell, Conley, and then a big giant question mark where some other guard probably is going to go.
Yeah, so my last pick,
or Zion, or one of the, or Ingram.
Right. So the Utah question is interesting because I think if we use your criteria from the East, which is who do I want in Game 7 of do I want DeRozan, Mitchell, Booker, or Ingram? I'm probably going Mitchell. There's just something, and by the way, I don't know that I can defend that empirically.
Although I can defend it by
say,
saying
last
the guy
season,
scored 9,000 points in a 7-game series like yesterday.
So that's my answer. That's probably why, Ingram is so interesting to me because, he's a guy, by the way, we all toasted him last year and his numbers are pretty much, I wouldn't say exactly the same, but they're really, really similar. He's really starting to be part of an integrated offense. He's making plays out of these small dribble handoffs on the wing that move into a step-up screen. He's gotten very good at this 3-man game, something he frankly wasn't very good at 2 years ago. It's something we didn't see. In fact, my question for Brandon Ingram is, can you imagine how good he's going to be when he actually tries to make the game easy for himself? When he doesn't come off screens going into a contested jump shot from a guy who's 2 inches taller than him. But Ingram it's a tough omission for me. I'm probably going to go Mitchell over those guys. DeRozan is fascinating because
having a really nice season.
He's having a really nice season.
And the Spurs are good.
The Spurs are good. By the way, they're better when he's not on the floor by a pretty measurable margin. And again, what I'm saying is when we get down to these last 3 or 4, I have to start nitpicking, right? Like Devin Booker, true shooting percentage below 60. You know what?
Can I nitpick your nitpick?
Yeah, please.
Yes, the Spurs are way better when DeMar's on the bench. However, they're plus, I think, 3 per 100 possessions when he plays without Aldridge. So basically when Pirtle is at center. I think the Spurs starters being bad thing is more about Aldridge than DeRozan, and also about how good their bench is, which makes their starters look bad in comparison. But I think DeMar's case deserves to be punished a little bit for that, but not as much as you might think when you see the raw numbers. I think it's a lot about LaMarcus, who has fallen off a cliff.
Yeah, it just goes to when you start getting to these last spots, you have to nitpick, right? Like I'm gonna dock Booker for being less efficient as a shooter. I just am, right? Like 60% is kind of this Mendoza line for me for a guard who wants to make an all-star game, especially one who doesn't really bring anything defensively. And I'm with you in the sense that I feel for Devin because, you know, a lot of the shine on those box score numbers get taken away when Chris Paul has the ball in his hands, right? And to say nothing of sort of the collective memory of watching Suns highlights and saying, all right, who's hitting that big shot with 1 minute and 28 seconds left? You know, now often it's Chris Paul from his spot. And in a parallel universe, that same game, you know, Booker's doing those exploits. He's sharing some of the shine there. But you have to nitpick when you get down to the 4 spot. So you come up with these sort of, let's true shooting percentage or is off on. I just don't know how else to distinguish between these guys.
Let's do the exercise this way. You've already answered this question, but defend it. Let's do a teammate thing. Why is Zion a more deserving all-star than Ingram?
Zion is a more efficient player. I think, to me, just controls possessions in a way that Ingram doesn't. I think he, oddly, because he doesn't have range, he actually still pressures the defense more, you know, from a gravitational standpoint. I think, you know, look, he's not a great defender. I haven't loved what I've seen from Ingram this year, and that now we're getting kind of way down. And but again, I mean, he's a guy who is just, I mean, again, and it's a stat I go to frequently too, and I grant you that. But a 64% true shooting percentage. I mean, again, creating possessions out of nothing. I just think and also sentimentally, like I also think he's a weirdo, and like I want a diverse ecosystem on that floor, and I have a lot of like-sized, like-minded guys who play a certain way, and then I have Zion, who, unicorn's overused as a term, but like it's a more diverse ecosystem. He's a total freak, and he's a freak who can balance it with numbers. I mean, he's a 60% field goal percentage guy, but unlike Gobert, actually has a more multifaceted game. So I'm just kind of there with Zion. I want to see him, and it's not the fans and the marketing and the game. No. Like there's a possession dominance there that I like with this guy.
I think Ingram has been the best player on the Pelicans start to finish this season, but I think Zion has been their best player in the last 10 games when Stan has really let him play make and started running him and pick and roll and stuff. And that version of Zion, to me, is the keystone to what the Pelicans should be as a team. It reorders the hierarchy of what they do on offense to a point where I don't think anybody is over-leveraged or overtaxed. Ingram becomes the player he should be. Lonzo, who's on fire, becomes the player he should be. So I don't really have any kind of problem with putting Zion over Ingram. I'm not sure either will make my ballot, and I'm not even sure who I'll choose, because I do think game 1 to 25 or wherever we are, Ingram has probably been overall their best player. But lately Zion has been their best player. The advanced stats are leaning Zion, although when you take out PER, which is such a big number, they're kind of even. So I could go either or. Let's go to Phoenix. Paul or Booker? If you have to pick one, who do you pick?
I mean, I'm always sentimentally, and just in terms of, again, we talk about ecosystem and everything. I think Chris Paul is a greater reason why they're good. Numerically, I probably go with Booker. I don't have either of them in the final count.
Ooh, no Suns, 15-9.
I know. See, this is the problem, and it's unfair. Like it's patently unfair that I don't have a son. Do I have Do they have one of the 12 best players by my estimation? No. What do I do with that? I don't know.
No, sometimes
yeah.
it just happens like that. It's like, how could Philly only have one All-Star? Well, they might only
Right
have
now,
one All-Star.
now, here's the thing. I have Donovan in that last spot. If the answer is, okay, how can you have 3 Jasmine?
They like to be called Jasmine.
Versus 0 celestial bodies, like, I don't know. Yeah, maybe I need to kind of swap out Donovan for one of those 2 guys. In the sense that if you feel that a team that has overachieved and has solidified itself as a number 4 seed should, by de facto, have a representative at the All-Star game, I think, okay, then I'll. If you tell me that has to happen, I'm probably putting, God, I don't know, Booker, Paul. I still have Booker by a hair, but I just, I don't know. I'll take one of those guys, but right now I have the last spot for Mitchell.
I'll take CP. And I love Devin Booker. My love for Devin Booker is well known. It has been constant from the moment he entered the league. I think Chris has been better this year. The only number where Devin has him is scoring. And yeah, that matters a lot. Everything else is CP. And if you look at the advanced stats, it's not even close.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not one of these, I swear by what the advanced numbers are telling me. They're my be-all, end-all. They're my tiebreaker. No. But when they are one factor that I consider in these discussions and debates, and when they are all telling me the same thing, it's like a blaring red light that some traditional statistics are missing something that's going on here. So I would take CP over Booker. If I have to pick a son, I'm not sure like you that I will pick a son, but I would pick Chris Paul. What are we to do then with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and De'Aaron Fox, who are just, are having fantastic season. John Morant, I don't think, has played enough games, and the Grizzlies have been better with him on the bench. I don't really think that matters. I don't think it's a thing, but I just don't think he's quite in this conversation. But Fox and Shai have been really, really good. And Shai, in particular, on a team that when you take him off just has no way to score, although they've had these kind of funny games recently where they've played like 7 power forwards at the same time and somehow scored. I don't know what to do with those guys. They're both deserving, and particularly Fox if the Kings keep on rolling like this.
Yeah, listen, I am an SGA fanboy, and I think you tell them, yeah, you'll be there soon, pretty damn soon. I just the Suns question is also interesting because I wish I could take a little piece of Chris Paul and a little piece of Booker and a little piece of Bridges and just sort of create kind of a Sun Frankenstein to get there. It's just none of those guys rise to the top 12. Fox is so much fun. God, it's a really deep position in a really deep conference, and I don't know what we do. I mean, one thing you could do is expand the roster to 15. Then you dilute the importance of the selection, but I think you and I have demonstrated here that I don't think you cheapen this game if 15
there's
guys.
There's just nothing separating these guys. I mean,
exactly.
I just don't know how to make a cogent argument that this guy deserves it and this guy doesn't. In fact, I've just been, in the last couple of days, I've had a lot of phone conversations with people just about in the league about stuff like this. And I like to put it to them blindly. You have to pick one. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or De'Aaron Fox, who do you want on your team for the next 5 years? And these people whose job it is to evaluate basketball players and have their finger on the pulse of the NBA, they're just reduced to rubble when you ask them this question. Oh, boy. I think Fox, Shai's defense is really good. Yeah, but Fox can really be the fulcrum of a great. Oh boy, that floater's. They hem and they haw because these guys are both so good in such different ways. I mean, stylistically, De'Aaron Fox and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander look nothing alike, play nothing alike, and they've both been really good. And it's just you throw your hands up in the air. Statistically, I'm looking at my spreadsheet now. They're really, really close across the board. I don't know what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I think you expand the roster to 15. I mean, look, who cares if it's diluted? What is this game anyway? Teams actually have 15-man rosters. Why shouldn't
you don't even go conference versus conference anymore? It's
right,
team
exactly.
Captain versus team captain.
Why not just expand it to 15? Now, then you get into a situation where, there's nothing separating 14 from 17, so you just play this again just at a lower rung. In which case, that's probably the best argument against expanding it, in addition to dilution in general. But I don't know, man. And I would love to give Shea Gilgeous-Alexander a nod. I just don't have. I can't do it when Donovan Mitchell is sitting there, even in what has been an unexceptional season by his standards. What am I supposed to do there?
I'll tell you, we've gone through this whole rigmarole. I got no idea who I'm picking for my last 3 spots in the Western Conference. I mean, once I get to Gobert, my first Jazz man in, I got those 9 guys, and then I got 3 spots for all these dudes, and I have no idea who I'm picking still. I know I'm probably going to pick Donovan Mitchell for one of them. And after that, and by the way, why have we not talked about Christian Wood? So on my advanced stats little spreadsheet here, number 1, when you add up all the categories and then you add up all the other categories and take away that, whatever it is, number 1 is Christian Wood. Now, I know he's injured. He's missed some games. He's going to miss some games going forward. Is there any and it's not like the Rockets are bad. They have a better record than the Thunder. They have virtually the same record as the Kings and the Pelicans. Is there some reason that Christian Wood is not more prominently in this discussion?
I mean, you're right, because he wasn't injured that many days before Conley. I just think out of sight, out of mind right now. But yet, it's funny. The minute he went down, they hit their roughest stretch of the season since Harden left. So I have no idea why.
He's a really dynamic offensive player. I mean, defensively, I think it's pretty for reasons of both effort and just sort of feel for that part of the game.
It's not what
he's fine. He's okay. He can be okay. He's big and he's athletic, so he can be okay when he dials in. But offensively, that guy is a force, and he can do anything. Like, you wanted to pop out for threes, he can do that. You wanted to rim run, he can do that. You wanted to face up against a mismatch, he can do that. And his numbers are off the charts. I do think he deserves a place in this conversation for some reason. Maybe it is the missed games. Maybe it's that sometimes you get these guys that suffer through no fault of their own because they play for teams that just go through an absolutely wacky first half of the season that leaves you just feeling like, I don't even know what the Houston Rockets are. I don't know what because of the Harden thing, it just feels like the Rockets are this weird mystery box, and they've had this great defense since they traded Harden. They play just Sean Tate at center sometimes, and then sometimes DeMarcus starts at center, and sometimes Wood starts at center. Just a weird team, and you kind of feel like, I just don't know what to make of anything going on with this team, so therefore he's out of sight, out of mind a little bit. I don't think that's fair. I think he's had a really nice season.
He should totally be in the conversation.
He's not going to be. I don't think that's. I don't think he's going to be one of my 3 guys. I mean, again, I've got 9 locks. I only got 3 spots.
There are too many damn good guards in this conference, and it's just not. And I also still think. Let's face it. I don't think voters are inclined in All-Star games to favor bigs. They just aren't. I don't care if they can do everything. I don't care if they happen to have guard skills. It's just not somewhere the voters are going to be disposed unless you're talking Joel.
I like when we have a random dude who does not like. I like Rudy Gobert in an All-Star game. You got all these dudes throwing alley-oops and making no-look passes, and Rudy's out there like, I'm dropping on the pick and roll. I'm gonna protect the rim. Here I go. And Kyle Korver's out there like running. I'm open off a pin down, guys. I'm open off a pin down. And people are like, dude, it's an All-Star game. Like, we don't really care. I like when there's one guy that's just out of character like that.
I'm trying to think who that who other than Rudy. I'm trying to think who is the East's Martian. I don't know. It's a lot of fun, man. There are a lot of fun players on this list. Yeah, it'll be Bam sort of running offense from the high post.
Vooch, maybe Vucevic could be that guy.
Yeah, Vooch will just stretch and hit 4 3-pointers in 11 minutes.
By the way, they haven't said in this, whatever you want to call this, also in the Plague All-Star game where the league is going to Atlanta for an All-Star game and they're having a dunk contest at halftime for some reason. Thank God there will be a time limit on the dunk contest because it'll be, well, maybe there won't be. I don't know. They have not said yet. This feels like 7 years ago. They haven't said if they're going to use the Elam ending again, where they have the target score, which was such a hit last year. It was
so good.
Now, I would bet a lot of money based on conversations I've had that they are going to use the Elam ending again. I understand that it is not one of the 7,200 most pressing issues about sending a collection of human beings to the same place to play a basketball game right now. But we're creeping up on All-Star. I'm kind of surprised they haven't said it yet, but I hope they do, and I suspect they will. That was a lot of fun. That was kind of, in retrospect, when the world was beginning to end, and we all should have seen it coming by then because it was coming in other parts of the world. But I just remember watching that All-Star game. What I would like to go back in time now, knowing what we know, and relive like February 2020. Like what were we all thinking? What was going on? We're sitting like, oh man, like Bam's in the All-Star game. And that's kind of what a weird. It feels like 5 years ago, doesn't it?
It doesn't. I think that Sloan is the last weekend of it.
Whoa. Well,
You remember that?
I was there,
Yeah.
as were you. And Kenny Atkinson got relieved of his duties, and we did a podcast about it. And probably none of us should have been there. And it was a conference. There was a conference in March 2020. We were at it. And by the way, at the conference, there was a volleyball tournament, a high school volleyball tournament where like 1,000 high school girls were in the same complex we were, sweating and playing volleyball. It seems like a terrible idea.
We will be doing Sloan Zoom style, will we not, this season?
Yeah, Sloan is virtual.
Yeah. No green room.
I can't think of anything less appealing. This is not about Sloan than a virtual conference. I would rather take a virtual nap than attend a virtual. I would rather.
Virtual obedient puppy school is worse.
Really?
It
That
is
sounds like
not
it's cute. At least
No,
it's
no,
not,
it
it's
is
not cute.
not something that can be conducted virtually.
So wait, you have a trainer telling you how to train
Yes.
your dog at home?
You have a trainer staring into a screen, not demonstrating anything, while you have your laptop angled because your dog is small and your counter is tall. And then, so to get it in the frame, and then the trainer kvetches at you because you're not in the frame because you don't stage like Broadway shows. And I don't know how to get me, the dog, and my partner in one frame with a little map that you have to use for the training. Well, all this is to say that, Sloan is not amenable to Zoom, and obedience classes are not conducive to Zoom. They're just exercises in absolute frustration. My dog is kind of, at a certain point, just retired from the whole thing.
I don't think I got anywhere with my Western Conference All-Stars, Kevin. I think we just did a whole podcast.
Did I just muddle it for you? And I'll be
No,
mad
I
if
don't
you
know what
don't.
I'm doing.
I mean, I'm gonna die on the Mike Conley hill. I don't care if he's injured. I don't care if he doesn't play another second of NBA basketball in his career. This guy needs to go to the All-Star this season. He's the best. He has been the best player on the best team, and I am whole hog into this.
And you know what? Look, I haven't talked to Mike this year. I think he actually cares. I remember a couple seasons ago when the Grizzlies came to New York, fall of 2018, I think, and he had come on my podcast once before, so you don't want to go over the same topics again and again. And I said to their PR guy, hey, I probably shouldn't bring up the All-Star thing, right? We don't need to do that again. And he said to me, I think you should bring it up because Mike is ready to talk about how much he wants it, how much it means to him. And of course, he didn't end up making it again. But I do think he cares, and some players pretend they don't care, and it's natural. Caring is not cool, right? Like everyone wants to be too cool for school, and Mike actually cares. It would mean something to him, and he's played well enough that he absolutely deserves it. So maybe there is room for a little in this crap world. Maybe there is room for one feel good thing, and that thing would be Mike Conley making the All-Star.
It'll be impossible to marshal the public, but if we can marshal the media and the coaches, it's outrageous. This guy will have played a career the way he has, with not a damn shooter in Memphis for 11 years, whatever the hell long he was there, and to not be in an All-Star game. He is so skilled, he is so poised, he could do so many things. He defends. He's 4'9", and he's one of the best point guard defenders in basketball over the last 10 years.
Have we left anybody out? In either conference, is there any?
No, Randall.
So.
You will get the most grief for not giving Randall any shine. You will get. I'm predicting in the grief power rankings. I mean, the thing about it is that Knicks fans are so traumatized already anyway. They already have a bevy of complaints, but actually they're playing nicely this year. But I think you'll get the most grief for not giving Randall more serious.
He's a candidate. He's a middle of the road candidate, right there with Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris and Jeremy Grant and Fred VanVleet. I went into the exercise actually thinking he would outrank a lot of those guys. I just seem to, by luck, have watched a disproportionate number of crazy Julius Randle games and missed the disproportionate number of like okay Julius Randle games. When I dug into it, he was not a no-brainer. I thought he was going to be a pretty, not a no-brainer, but pretty close to one, and he's not. He's just in that sort of muddled middle ground. And then you like, well, the Knicks are, what are the Knicks, 10-15 or something like that? I mean, they're just their offense stinks. And yeah, their offense is way better with Randle on the floor. They're way better with Randle on the floor. He's their best player. I just don't. And the 6 assists are really impressive. His jump shooting has been pretty damn impressive. He's got a case. It's just, again, the East has 25 guys and 10 of them have basically the same case. Like, what's the case for Julius Randle over Gordon Hayward? There really isn't one. It's just the same guy, just like a little more juice in this category and a little less juice in that category. It's the same guy. So I love Julius Randle. Everyone knows I love Julius Randle. I just, what am I, kicking off Chris Middleton to put Julius Randle on? No, Chris Middleton's just better.
Yeah, no, I'm having the same problem. But I think in the indignation sweepstakes, I think Randle will be the biggest snub perceived. And by the way, there's a case to be indignant. I mean, he's had an amazing year.
Yeah, I put him above. Like he has passed in the last couple of weeks. He's passed Sabonis. He's passed Brogdon. I might put him over Tobias Harris even. And like he's got a case. It's hard. All right. Well, we will again. Just to be clear. Those of us who read the email appropriately and have ballots will vote only for 5 starters. So my vote, such as it is, Mr. Arnovitz has you basically wrote in Mickey Mouse on your ballot and shoved it in the ballot box. You forfeited your ballot. My vote is only for the 5 starters. Julius Randle's not a starter. This does not concern Julius Randle. So all of this is just gobbledygook in terms of does it actually matter. My 5 starters will probably be Beal, Jaylen Brown, Giannis, Durant, Embiid. That's it. And so then,
but you didn't name. By the way, I have a question for you. Who's your West? Are you Kawhi or Paul George?
Oh, Kawhi.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, I gave Paul George a really close look. I mean, the numbers are just outrageously good, but I ultimately ended up with Kawhi as my starter.
Yeah, I haven't thought about. I mean, the more interesting debate is you have to pick 2 guards between Steph, Luka, and Dame.
Yeah,
that's.
I think it's Steph and Dame. I really do. Luka's amazing, but just when you look at the year, Steph is. I can make arguments for keeping Luka off. I just can't find a hell of a lot of argument for me keeping Dame or Steph off.
Dame, Terry Stotts, they're just like, it's just like duct tape over there. They're just holding it. They're like 13-9 or something.
Yes.
It's just duct tape over the crack in the wall. Duct tape over the cupboards falling off the hinges, and just duct tape. We snuck out another win. Robert Covington made a couple. It's just Dame is unbelievable. And the Blazers, Melo won every 3 games. Melo gives you 20 off the bench, and Canner gives you 14 and 15. They just find ways, and people want to on the Blazers because they want another mid-run playoff run and blah blah blah. The 2 small guards, they just endure, man. The Blazers just endure, and they are currently enduring. And if you count them out of the playoffs when C.J. McCollum and Yusuf Nurkic got hurt, I got news for you. They're not out of the playoffs right now. They just endure. And Dame he's so good that it's crazy how good he is. He's just so good. He's a show every single night. He single-handedly gives them a chance to win every game.
They're so damn resourceful. I mean, the magnitude of those losses. You lost your 2 best front court players. You lost obviously your second best guard and your second best player overall. They had this vaunted depth that now has been completely depleted. By the way, like Simons is learning the hard way. It's not like that guy has sort of blossomed. I mean, they're taking lumps while they develop, while they win games, while they stay in the playoff hunt. There is not a non-flawed, deeply flawed player on that floor every single moment of every single game, with the exception of Dame Lillard. I mean, everybody else is sort of it's lemonade every single night.
You know who I love watching on that team?
Who?
Gary Trent Jr.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Just absolute balls of steel. That guy thinks he is and I mean this affectionately, he thinks he's a superstar. He thinks he can go one-on-one against anybody and get a bucket. He has a really sneaky good like old school mid-range ISO game. He's shooting threes with people on his face. He doesn't care. I love watching Gary Trent. And he makes winning plays. He makes winning plays on both ends of the floor. I'm a huge fan.
By the way, I also think he factors to be a eventually a really decent defensive player. He's big. You see these guys who come in a bubble, all of a sudden he's launching 9 threes a game. You just assume, okay, that's a 6'3" sharpshooter with no other skills. That's John Jenkins, who slipped to the second round or something. And, the guy's big, and he's strong and can get stronger, frankly. I think when the whole thing is there, I think he's going to be a quintessential 3, and maybe not capital D, but 3 lowercase to mid-size D. I do think six guys who can play that way are just not all that frequent anymore. And so this guy, it's a really good piece for them, because it's always 3 small guards and whatever. No, this guy is a legitimate 3 in terms of size and stature, and if you could put the skills with it, I think there's just it's a great keeper for them.
I'm glad we ended an all-star podcast by talking
Gary
about Gary
Trent
Jr. Kevin Arnovitz, I don't bother filling out your all-star ballot. I guess you don't have one, but thanks as always for your time. I hope to see you soon. I hope Howard the dog behaves himself over the coming weekend, and enjoy California.
Thank you very much.